Okay. Again, I repeat for the people who are just joining for the first time. Today is the final lesson in the series, and if you want to basically catch up and study every or like watch every class that we've done, I will post it in the I'll post the link in the discussion channel. If you go to the discussion channel, which is right above the hall, you can find a link that says, or a link to a room that says Modern Standard Arabic for Absolute Beginners, where you can watch all the previous episodes, and along with the PDF we've used. And after today's like class, I'm going to post the whole PDF, as in like it contains all the letters, all the lessons in one PDF instead of the fragmented, segmented PDF like notes. So we would start. So, uh, lesson 8. Before we start, we need to recap what you've learned in lesson 7. In lesson 7, we've learned two of the most notorious sounds in Arabic, the letter Ain and the letter Ghain, or the sound Da and the sound Gh. The sound R does not have any equivalent in any language that I know. And we've learned that it is basically a sound that you make with basically constricting or squeezing your throat muscles. Basically, it's like a retching or a squeezing sound or a choking sound. The letter Ghain, it could be found in other languages beside English, like French, like the R in the Ria. It's like R. And then we've learned about four orthographical variations of things we've learned previously. The dagger alif, we've said that it's basically just an orthographical convention of writing the long vowel alif. We just replace it with a small short dagger like this on top of the consonant. So it's not very common, but it is found in few words that are common, unfortunately, like the word hada or ذلك. And you would notice that hada has a small dagger here, and dhalika has a small dagger here, and the word Allah has a shadda and a dagger on it because basically it is this lam is a long vowel. Alif has a long vowel fatha. So it's Allah, Allah. And then we've learned about the madda. Madda says that madda was basically a way of writing the hamza that has a long vowel alif or long vowel fatha. So instead of writing it this way, we just write an alif with a little tilde sign on top, like this, on top of the alif, and it indicates uh, uh, like amana. He believed, or al-Quran, al-Quran, an. And then we've learned about the alif maqsura, which is basically another variation which comes final in a word. Basically, it's instead of writing it this way, we just write it this way without any dots. And Y is just orthographical convention because of basically the Y is a very advanced topic because it has to do with the verb conjugation and the verb root. Depends on if the verb root has a ya at the end or a waw in the end. If it has a ya, then it will take the alif maqsura. If it has a waw, it will take an alif. That's like a very quick recap or a quick kind of overview of why do we have the alif maqsura or the alif, normal alif. And then we learned something called ta marbuta, which is basically a normal ta, but we tie the two edges together. It becomes like a circle with two dots. It resembles the ha in writing. If it was a standalone, it would be written like this. If it was not, it would be written like a ha with two dots. And we learned that it serves two functions. Basically, it's another representation of the sound ta, or it indicates the feminine gender of a noun. So if we say the word malik here, malik, malik is a king. But if we say malika, malika is a queen. Uh, and we've learned a very useful trick about it, that it basically before a ta مربوطة, the vowel is always a fatha. Uh, and that would might help you reading unvoweled text. It is either a voweled fatha or a long vowel alif, like in the word fata, fatatun. So fatatun, it's a long vowel alif. So this is a quick recap of lesson 7, and we're going to jump at the lesson 8, which is again the final lesson of the series. We're going to learn the hallmark of Arabic, the consonant that basically Arabic was dubbed لغة الضاد as the language of the sound ض, and its counterpart ظ. And to begin with, for those who've been following the previous classes, both sounds are velarized. You could have told by how I pronounced ظ, and ض. There's an o quality to the sound. So this is a velarized sound. And then we're going to learn something called Hamza of Wasl, or basically Hamzat al-Wasl. And we will learn how it's important in this class, and why we should learn it even in this level, because usually some classes or some courses kind of omit that and adds it to a more advanced topic, but that would hinder your writing, sorry, your reading. And then we're going to learn something about what we call sun letters and the moon letters, because they both uh, kind of are very related to the Hamzat Wasl and the defining or the definite article al, because al is actually made of Hamzat Wasl and a lam sakin, and we know how these letters interact with this lam in particular, and why some words are pronounced very differently because of these letters. So, we start with the letter Dad. The letter Dad is uh, basically it's a lot easier to kind of try to reproduce than the letter Ain, because what you can do is basically come up with the sound that is closer to it, which is Dal, da. But let's just read it as we started, as we are like used to read the notes and try to explain them. So the Arabic sound da has no equivalent in English, of course. It's a velarized. So by the word velarized, we mean that it comes from this area, the velum, the back of your mouth, which is the fleshy part of your palate. Uh, we call it the velum. Voiced. So we know what voiced means by now. It's basically your vocal folds or your vocal cords vibrate when you're making the sound. And it's an alveolar, as in it pertains to this area, the alveolar ridge, basically the little bump right after or right behind your teeth, front teeth, of course, the front upper teeth. There's a small tiny bump. We call it the alveolar ridge, and a stop. What we mean by stop here, a stop is not that it stops you from speaking. No, a stop is like a phonological term that means that when you say the letter d, d, basically it contains a little bit of an ejection of air when producing it. It's not like s where it has no air, but d causes the a little bit of air to be explode, like to be expelled out of your mouth. So that's what we mean by stop, as in we don't stop speaking, but the airflow kind of gets interrupted for like a fraction of a second. Okay, so let's talk or dive deeper into the actual sound of the. So it says that it's very similar to the sound d or dal, d, but what makes it unique is that we add the velarization aspect to the d. Uh, how do we velarize sounds? Okay. Uh, let's take the English example as the word cat, and notice how I pronounce the a here, the vowel cat. But let's take another word and say caught. Now this for like this construct of the au is not pronounced it's pronounced o. Caught, caught something, and the same can be said for the word cod. Cod, cod, cod. So these changes are basically what you're doing is you're velarizing the a sound. You're making it be produced, or you're making the sound produced in the back of your mouth. Basically, instead of the a or the happening here, it is happening here. And how do we do that like in our mouth is basically by tensing our tongue with the back part of the tongue raised high in the mouth. So what do we mean is that this tongue here, by this shape, it's a relaxed tongue. But if we do it like tense it as the blade becomes tensed and the back is pushed a little bit to the back, this is how we achieve the velarization. Caught, caught. If you kind of say cat and try to, while saying these two words, try to kind of be aware of of how your tongue what your tongue is doing. So if you say the word cat, you'd realize that your tongue is very relaxed. But when you say the word caught, you kind of feel that your tongue is more tense and it's drawn backwards a little bit. So this is how velarization happens. So now what we do is we try to kind of say the letter da, but try to add like how would I would translate it into English. I would say like try to do the and say dot, but try to make it more velarized. And one tip I can give you to make it more velarized is to do this while lying down. Because when you're lying down, by gravity, the back of your tongue might actually come more backwards. So what you do is the and then like do, do, the, do, do, the, do, do. Basically that and dot. But the more, of course, the consonant quality is not the, it's more do, 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 the. As how do I make this difference? Basically, the tip of your tongue will be touching here, right? But in the letter dal, a small portion of your tongue or the tip of your tongue will be touching the alveolar ridge. But in the letter da, a bigger portion would be touching here. So do, do, d, d, do, do. Okay, so uh, the sound here, it says that it's a velarized sound, so we have to pay attention that the front vowels, basically the most notoriously is the a or the fatha or the long fatha, the long vowel a or will undergo noticeable velarization, changing from a to the a in cod or the a in cot. And we will see how that happens here in this table. Uh, of course, this shouldn't be a very foreign concept to you who watched the previous classes, like when we spoke about the velarized letters like qaf and ta and ta, qaf. And now we're going to talk about da and dha. These are all velarized sounds. So let's compare the sounds of the two letters. So here I'm going to pronounce this as dam, dam, dam. But here I would say dom, dom. Notice the change of the ah sound. Dam, dom, dom. Dar, dar, dar. Dar means home or a place basically. Dar means harmful. Yudiru, yudiru. There is a long vowel kasra here. Like yudiru, he manages. But yudiru, yudiru. And as we said, the most notoriously affected vowels are the fatha and then the dhamma and lastly the kasra, because kasra is already a very back vowel, so it does not mutate that much. It does not undergo that huge change. Um, Here I would pronounce this as adda, adda. Here it'd be adda, adda, adda. Here it would be fad, fad, and fad, fad, fad. And this is rida, رداء رضاء 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 ضاء رداء رضاء. Velarization. يدوم يدوم, and this is dhamma, so it does not undergo that huge change as well. So يدوم يضوم يضو يضوم يضوم يدوم يضوم. There is a hint of velarization, but it's not as pronounced as ضامة ضامة ض. So, any questions about the phonemic properties of letter dad? Or is this like this part of how to produce it? Is anything about it unclear? This one is hard, but it's not impossible. But uh, eh, basically, you're not kind of expected to produce a sound from the first go. It's a matter of training. So as I said, you can start with just getting familiar with the concept of velarization by cat and caught, caw, aw, and then move to make it with a d, like dat and dot, and then try to make the d more emphatic, like d, d. And how do we make it more emphatic is basically by using a larger portion of the tip of our tongue compared to the d, where it uses a smaller portion. Like I'm going to write this with this is the d. Basically, this is how we use the d here. We bring the tip of our tongue here to the alveolar ridge, with the tongue being relaxed because the d is not a velarized sound, but with the d sound, a bigger portion of our tongue would be touching here. Of course, with the tongue being kind of tensed, and this part is pushed backwards. That's why I'm telling you to kind of changes lying down, because gravity kind of pushes or pulls the back of your tongue a bit backwards. Yes, it's the vowel following the consonant change. It's not a vowel change. It's the effect of velarization of the vowel of the consonant. The vowel is still, and fatha is still a long vowel, fatha. But the problem is that because these consonants are at the back of your mouth here, and the rounded or the frontal vowels, it's really hard to kind of pronounce a consonant that is velar with a vowel that is frontal. So basically, the vowel has to shift a little bit backwards and becomes more velarized. And this is a feature we've discussed with other velarized sounds, like the qa, the ta, the ta. Uh, that's how velarization works in Arabic. So it's not basically the fatha does not change. It's not like a new vowel. No, it's the same vowel, but it's due to the effect exerted by the consonant, not by the inherent change of the vowel. So, I guess we can move on to writing the letter Dad. So, letter Dad resembles very much its brother, the letter Sad, which is also a velarized letter, but the Dad has a dot. And as we said, it's a connector letter, basically. There are like few non-connector letters that are like the ra, the z, the d, the waw, and the final alif. Those are basically the non-connectors, and the waw, sorry. No, actually, we've written waw. Wait, but everything else is basically a connector. So as we've discussed before, the connectors have an independent form. Basically, it's just on its own, following a non-connector, for example, or a form where it's joined by something before it, or a form where it's joined by something behind it, or after it, and a form where it's joined on both sides. But remember, there is a little bit of a thing you have to keep in mind, is that when you're writing Lod, you see this little tip here after the dot, you have to keep it in writing. So if I'm writing it standalone, that does not matter. So I would just read this as ma ra because there's a fatha on the meme, there's a fatha on the ra, and there is a tanween dhamma on the da, on the da. So I would pronounce it maradun, maradun, an illness. And remember that the tanween is a sign of, this is tanween, is a sign of indefiniteness. Once you see tanween on a word, you'd know that it is an indefinite word. Same happens here. So I would, this is where it's joined by something before it. So I would pronounce this as ma, because there's a fatha on the meme. There is a kasra on the re, but it's followed by a ya, so it's a long vowel kasra. So it's mari, mari, maridun, maridun, a patient, or someone who is sick, basically. Now, this is where the tooth of the dot plays into comes into play. When it's basically when it loses the little belly it has, when you write it, you have to kind of keep that tooth. If you see here, there's a tooth I've written. It's like, so this is the word dhamma. In my own handwriting, you have to keep the tooth. But uh, compared to other letters that share the same thing, like sod also, you have to put the tooth. But other letters like ta, you don't, because ta has the tooth on top, and it looks like an alif basically. So ta, and the one you're going to learn the next is dha. It has a dot, so you don't put the tooth. But in sad and dad, you'd have to put the little tooth right after it. So how would I read this? The dha here has a fatha, so it's dha, 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 and the meme has a shadda fatha, so it's dhamma, 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 and there is a ta marbuta. So we know two things: that this word is feminine, and this word, because of ta marbuta, this vowel has to be alif, and it's the case here. So it's dhamma, ma, ma. Dammatan. And another thing we remembered about the ta marbuta is if there's a tanween fatha, the alif of tanween, this one is not written. The tanween just goes right on top of the letter of the ta marbuta. So we discuss that joined on both sides, it's the same thing, but you just, right. So we would write this one, I would read this one as bay, 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 because this is a fatha and this ya has sukoon, so this is a consonant sound. It's not an indicator for a long vowel. It's a consonant sound. So it's bay, bay, and the dha here has no voweling, but it's followed by an alif. So we know that it's a long vowel, fatha. So, and this is a hamza on the line. It has a sukoon, of course, because it's in the pausal form. So we'd say it's bayda, 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 which is basically it's an adjective. It's to describe something that is feminine with the color being white. So it's like if I say hamamatun bayda, I say that it's a white pigeon, because pigeon in Arabic is feminine. And how I know that, because if I write it, this is hamama, hamamatun, ha. And this is of course meme with a long vowel, so it's hamama. So it's a pigeon, and I know because of ta marbuta. So if I'm going to describe the pigeon by of being white, I would say hamamatun, hamamatun baydaun. So a white pigeon. So anyone feels confident enough to try and read? Mhm. I mean, I am not expecting pristine pronunciation. This is the point of the whole class. Okay, Arian, let's go. So row A, please, Arian. فرض. فرض. Perfect. فريض. فريض. Perfect. This one. This one is cheating. You know this. ضمة. ضمة. Perfect. This one is a bit tricky. Oh, I might have made a mistake here. This is shadda with kasra. Sorry, this is shadda with kasra. ممرضات. ممرضات. Perfect, which is basically nurses. Uh, this one is very simple. ماضٍ. ماضٍ. You're basically what you're doing is you're velarizing the meme. You're pronouncing ma. No, it's ماضٍ. ماضٍ. Perfect. Perfect. Very good. Thank you very much. So you see, that's not hard. Anyone wants to take row B? Oh, Al-Amin, let's go. Uh, let's go. Yes, row B, please. B1 is بيض. ض. Perfect. رضيت. رضيت. Yes. This one is حضارة. 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 Mm-hmm. أبيض. Mm-hmm. أبيض. ض. This one is موضوع. موضوع. Try to make the ض more emphatic. You're probably what you're doing is you're pronouncing it as a da, which is okay at the beginning. But as we said before, what you need to do is to kind of put more of the tip of your tongue and approximate it to the alveolar ridge here, to the bumpy area after behind your teeth. Because with the d, you put a small portion here. But with the d requires you to put a bigger one, like to a bigger amount of your tongue to make the sound d. And with the velarization, as we've learned, you kind of start with the combination of that to produce the normal long vowel that, and then switch to dot dot dot, because this AU kind of diphthong here would produce the velarization, a little bit of a velarized sound. So it's dot, like caught or cod, and then you build up the sound d. Okay, well, thank you very much, Lamin. Very good. Anyone else feeling like row C? Anyone? Do I have to say names? I have to mention people by their name to kind of participate? Okay, I'll take it then. I'll write. I'll read row C, and maybe some people will muster the courage to attempt row D. So C1 is حاضر. حاضر. حاض. حاضر. ض. And notice that the kasra does not show like very significant velarization, because as we said, kasra is already a backed vowel. The next one is the meme here has a long vowel fatha? No, because it's followed by a waw. So the usus waw is basically a consonant. So it's a normal letter. It's not a long vowel. So it's mawa, mawa, di, mawa, di, mawa, di. This dal, this d has a long vowel kasra because of the ya following it. So it's mawa, di, مواضيع. مواضيع. Sorry, it's a tanween, tanween dhamma. So This one is very simple. qa, ba, da. So these are two velarized letters, the qaf and the da. So how would I pronounce it? Qabada, qabada, qabada. Notice that the fatha here is velarized and the da and the da fatha here is velarized. Qabada, 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 qabada. To catch or to basically receive. This one is the fa has a alif after it, so it's a long vowel fatha. So it's fadil, fadil, fadil. This is also we would use that to say someone is pious or someone is a decent man. We say he's fadil. This one you're going to see this word a lot if you're going to study Arabic grammar, and you would say this is مضارع مضارع مضارع. The meme has a dhamma, the d has nothing, but it's followed by an alif, so I know it's a long vowel fatha, which has to be velarized, so it's مضارع مضارع. Now, how would I not velarize it? Let's switch to dal. Let's write it with a dal. So how would I say it's مدارع 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 compared to مضارع. This one, Rodi, anyone feels like it? No one? Okay, I'll take. Okay, Victor H. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, Victor H. Ready when you are. Khada. Yes, perfect. This one is ضحك. Perfect. This one is أيضا. Perfect. This one is ضاعف. ضاعف. ممتاز. وا واضحا. واضحا. Again. No, the d has to be more emphatic. So it's واضي. You're getting there. You're getting there. More practice will make perfect. But thank you very much. Oops. Sorry. Any questions about the letter Dad before we jump to whatchamacallit, the next one? You can either raise your or like use your hand to come on stage and ask it, or type it in discussions. Okay, no questions. Let's go then. So the letter Dha. Dha is basically the same exact scenario, but with the letter Dal, not the letter Dal. So again, let's just read its definition. So letter Dha has no English equivalent, of course, but it's a velarized. So we already know that it's from here. the velum, voiced, that it basically causes your vocal cords to vibrate, producing it, and interdental fricative. What does that mean? So interdental, it means that it comes from the teeth. It's from the dentals, right? And fricative, that means you produce the sound by creating a small gap caused by your tongue and your teeth that air passes through, producing the sound or the sound. As in, you do not close the airflow completely with your tongue, you just leave a very narrow passage to air for air to escape through, causing that friction. So let's start with the letter that we know as the before. So the is basically the English that or there. And notice how your tongue acts when you're pronouncing it. It's the, the. The very tip of your tongue comes here and causes a small gap for air to pass through. So this is what we call interdental fricative, or causing friction between the teeth and the tongue. Um, Now, what happens if we're going to produce the letter la or the sound la? We'll do the same thing, but by tensing our tongue and pushing it back. As in, let's take the English that and do the same trick with thought. Of course, this word does not exist in English, but is for the sake of just, getting the vowel or the velarization correct. So when I say thought, it very almost resembles the sound the, just by changing the vowel. It is exactly like the, but with the velarization it becomes law, thought, and that. I think this one is a lot easier than law because you don't have to do anything different with with the tip of the tongue. It's just the same thing, but you have to add the velarization, which is achieved by practicing this sound, the o sound, the o, or cod. Sorry, oops, cod. This o would be pronounced like you don't say cod, or you don't say cod, you say cod, type of fish. Uh, so it resembles the letter the, but with the velarization. The vowels undergo the same phenomenon when we have learned when we discuss other velarized letters like to and qa. As you know, the vowel, the fatha or the long vowel alif would become more of an a sound, not a sound. Of course, this letter suffers from the diglossia in the Arabic-speaking region. Sometimes the would be pronounced as the, especially in the peninsular area, like in the Gulf region. You would even say like instead of ad-dallin, oops, in Quran they would say al-dallin. Now is that wrong, right? It's not my place to say. But the letter dha can show a little bit of variation when it comes to pronunciation. Some in Egypt, most likely they pronounce it as z. In Levant, sometimes it can be produced as, or it can be pronounced as the. Uh, but it's very variable. So for now, if you're sticking to MSA, you will almost hear it as the. You will not hear it as anything else. But just to keep it out there that you might hear it with different pronunciations in different Arabic-speaking regions. So let's just compare the sound of the and the. And I want you to kind of pay close attention to the velarization of the vowel. And again, the same conundrum happens where fatha and the long vowel show the most significant change. Dhamma or wow, long vowel wow, shows not that significant, and kasra almost shows no change because kasra, as we said, is an already backed vowel, or as the kasra already happens here. Um, so let's start with this. This one is the with a long vowel alif. So it's dhal, dhal. And here is dhal, dhal. Here it's The with a fatha. The re has a sukun, and the fe, let's say, has a sukun because it's pausal. We stop here. So it's ذرف, ذرف, ذرف. This one is ظرف, 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 ذرف, ظرف. The velarization of the a sound. Here it's the, and here's ظرف. This one is the has a fatha, the meme has a ya after it, so it's a long vowel kasra. So it's ذميم, ذميم. This one is ضميم, ضميم. This one is نذر, نذر, and نظر, نظر. He looked and he vowed. This one is ناذرا, ناذرا, ناذرا. This is the alif of tanween, by the way. Uh, Here it's ناظرا, ناظرا. Notice how the kasra did not show any significant velarization. ناظرا, ناظي, ظي. It's not ناظي, it's ناظي, ناظرا. This one is مذلة, مذ, مذلة. The lam has a shadda fatha, so it's stressed. مذلة, مذلة. And this one is, of course, this means humiliation. And this one is مظلة, مظلة, which means an umbrella. So that's why it's very important to kind of master the pronunciation. Uh, Here it's فذ, 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 فذ. The is stressed or doubled, so it's فذ. And this one is فظ, فظ, فظ. Someone who's rude or very crude in manners. Fadh is someone who is completely opposite as someone who's very bright. Uh, any questions about we move before we move to the writing of it, the writing of Allah? Uh, no one is typing, no hands are being raised, so I think we're good. So we'll jump to how to write it. So the shares very resemblance to the letter ta, but the only difference that it has a dot on top. So how would I read and of course it's a connector. It's a connector letter, so it has the independent form joined by something before it, joined by something after it, and joined on both sides. And again, the ta and the require no tooth in writing, so I would just write it like this with no tooth, unlike the sa and the da. So I would read this as the hamza with a fatha, so it's a, a, f, أفضاض, 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 which is basically the type of plural for the word we've just read before, which is fadh. Anyways, joined by the previous letter, as you know, you just write it like this. It's very liberal when it comes. You can just write it like this. Uh, Up to you, but the most important thing is to put the dot on the alif, or like the stroke, not alif, sorry. It's just the vertical stroke. Because if you don't, people might mistake it for a sad. And this one is muhafidhin, muhafidhin. Meme dhamma, ha with a long vowel fatha because of the alif, and the fe has a kasra, and the dha has a tanween kasra, so it's muhafidhin, muhafidhin. Joined by the following letter, it basically, oops, this is sloppy of me. This is the, and again, this is the. So it's mu wa muwazzafun or muwazzafu, muwazzafu, muwazzafu. And this one is nizamun, nizamun, system. Muwazzafun is someone who's employed, basically. So, anyone wants to give reading practice a shot? No hands. Al-Amin, yes. You are welcome on stage. Yes, let's start with A1, please. Yes, I can. Try again. There's no shadda on the da, so it's mu'dham. Perfect. This one is no, this one. No, no. Nadirun. This one is nadara. He looked. This one, it's the kaf, yes, and it has a long vowel fatha. So عكاظ عكاظ عكاظ. Mm-hmm. Number five. Mm-hmm. مظهر مظهر. Perfect. 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 Thank you very much. Anyone else feels like taking Roby? Maya, yes, please. Mm-hmm. Yes, we can. ظهر. No, what you're doing is you're trying to produce the sound like you're doing with the letter Z, as in you're bringing both of your teeth together. But letter the and the usually do not involve your lower teeth. You have to use your tongue and kind of bring it closer to your upper front teeth only. Mm-hmm. The, ظهر. You're still making it like a Z sound. But let's go back to the diagram. What you're doing is you are bringing your lower teeth to the upper teeth and producing the Z sound. So it comes out like Zahara, which is a very, very common issue, by the way. Um, but the proper pronunciation of the is basically bringing the tip of your tongue here, not sorry, this one here, and bringing it here. It's like trying to say the English the, and then velarize it, make it the. No, let's go back to the word. Yeah, you're getting there. You're getting there. The z is less pronounced now, but with more practice, because now you're just kind of consciously trying to put your tongue there. You're not getting it, but with more practice, you'll get there. So let's jump to the next word. مح محظوظ. Again, the tip of your tongue next to your upper front teeth. More practice. More practice is needed. حظ or حظ. 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 Mm-hmm. 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 Close. محافظتي. We're getting there, but more practice. ظل. ظل. Because now if I say ظل, ضل, it means he remained. But zalla, it means he kind of made a mistake or he made an oopsie. So the meaning is different. But ظل and zalla are different. But more practice on the ظ. Maybe in your native tongue or the other languages you speak doesn't have the, but for a starter you can start with the English that or these, those, until you manage the sound the or the th in English, and then build up the whole velarization concept of basically adding the sound to an AU diphthong, or basically this cluster of vowels. So it becomes that and thought, thought, thought. Once you master that velarization, it's just basically practice until you reach the pronunciation of the letter the. But very good effort. Thank you very much, Maya. Okay. Uh, okay. Why am I still hearing like if the mic is still on? One second. Okay. So anyone wants to attempt row C? Yes, Arian, please. Is my audio clear, by the way? Is my voice clear? Yeah, I can also hear it in my on my end too. But so I'll do one thing is I'm going to leave the stage and come back on. Maybe that fixes it. Oh, hmm, it is still there. Okay, that's very weird. To me, I feel like there is some sort of like I'm in an air tunnel, basically. But yeah, so let's just do row C. Like meanwhile, until I find a fix for it. Come again? I didn't hear you. You can see the slides. Oh wait, is it probably because of my stream just went off? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Yes. ظل. ظل. Yes. ظمأ. ظمأ. Mm-hmm. منى. منظمة. منظمة. Yes. ظاهر. عظيم. عظيم. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very good. Oops. Uh, okay, I need to fix this because it's just. I'm going to disconnect and come back. Yeah, I think now it's fixed. I don't hear that noise. Okay. So anyone wants to attempt Rodi? Uh, anyone feels like Rodi, or should I read it? Okay, so I'll give more chance to Kana. Okay, Kana, let's go for it. Alma, perfect. مو موعي, and the ta marbuta will give, like, for a ta marbuta to be there, this dha has to have a fatha, right? Because we've said that ta marbuta is always preceded by a fatha. Mm-hmm. موعظة, موعظة, موعظة. This one. Like, let's spell it out. So men. Mm-hmm. Perfect. منظومة, yes. محافظ, yes. Mayor. Mm-hmm. وظيفة, perfect. Now, notice here that the only vowel you needed to know is the vowel on the waw, but the remainder, you didn't know, you don't need to know the vowel, because now, by the end of this course, you know that the dha has a ya, so it's a long vowel kasra. The ta marbuta, like the letter before the ta marbuta has to be fatha, so you just basically can, at some point, read unvoweled text. Thank you very much, Kana. Very good job. Hmm. This one? This one is called a ta marbuta. Basically, it's like this or like this if it's standalone. It is basically the letter ta, but we tied the edges together, or the two edges, and it became a circle. Usually, we discussed this yesterday, that it has two functions. One, it's basically a ta, and it's pronounced as such. If you notice here, we pronounce it as manzumatun, tun. And the second function, that it indicates feminine. You're most welcome. You're welcome. Good job. So, any questions before we jump to something that is equally as important as letters? About both the letter dha and the letter do. Okay, no questions. Let's jump right into the hamza of wasl, or elidable hamza. Okay. This I feel some like courses or classes kind of omit explaining this. But I find it very important to kind of enable you to read. This is not an alphabet course or class, as in just to know the alphabet, but at least it helps you to kind of start reading, or to actually know why things are this way in terms of Arabic script or orthography, and how to like know what these little tiny symbols mean if you ever encountered them. So let's start with discussing the Hamza of Wasl, or Hamzat al-Wasl. So let's look at the word ism. What do you notice? And I want you to notice that the middle letter here is the sin, has a sukun. So in Arabic, I can never start with a consonant cluster. Basically, I cannot start with a letter that has a sukun. Any letter that has a sukun, I can never start with speaking, because there's no vowel. There's no vowel quality I can attach to that consonant to produce its sound. Vowels, like the function of vowels is to produce, or to give you that air quality, or that air, the amount of air where the sound can be produced. Either, the a, or the u, or the e are all basically just passage of air through your vocal cords and your organs of speech. So if there is no air, I cannot, like, magically produce a sound. So it's unusual that it's pronounced isim. If you actually hear it, it's isim. There is a glottal stop. There is a hamza here, but this hamza is like written, is not written. Sorry, and we only put an alif here. We put an alif and then we write it like isim. Uh, why do we put it when it's only the first word after a pause? What does that mean? What does this mean? It's basically when you're starting to speak and you are starting with this word, you have to pronounce an imaginary hamza. And it's only when you are starting speech, as in you are just pronouncing this word only, I would say isim. Oh, or this word is the first thing of your sentence or the first thing of your speech, I would have to pronounce this as isim. Keep in mind, put a mental note on that sound, which is the hamza sound, the glottal stop. Now, if it follows any other word or prefix, the initial glottal stop and the vowel I are not pronounced. So when I say here, how would I pronounce this? This is a standalone word. I would pronounce it as isim, isim, isim. But look here. Notice how I'm pronouncing it. هذا اسم, هذا اسم, هذا اسم. There is no and there is no I vowel. So I cannot say هذا اسم. No, that's wrong. So what now we can just actually understand what is meant by wasl. Wasl, it means it basically connects this word to this segment. And what the function is basically to prevent me to start my speech with a letter that has sukun. That's the whole purpose. But being in the middle of a sentence, there is the long vowel here that can lend a little bit of its vowel like feature to actually pronounce the s. That's why I say هذا اسم, هذا اسم, هذا اسم. I basically kind of elide or jump over this sound. Now in Quran, you might actually find this with a little sod on top, like this. And this to indicate this is a wasla, that you don't pronounce this if it's in the middle of speech. And that's why we call it Hamzat Wasl. The complete counterpart or the complete contrast of it is called Hamzat Qata', as in the name Ahmad. Let me write it in a way that is more clear. Ahmad. If I say, if Ahmad is my first thing or the first word I would pronounce in a sentence, I would say Ahmad, Ahmad. But if I write هذا, I don't say هذا Ahmad. No, I say هذا Ahmad, and this hamza will always be pronounced, and we call this the hamza of qata', the hamza of disjunction. We do not join anything. We cut. هذا أحمد. Compare this هذا أحمد and compare هذا اسم. هذا اسم. And why do we put this? Is to prevent us from starting with a letter that has sukun, which is one of the biggest taboos in Arabic, to start with a letter that's sukun. Now, if you're planning to learn the dialect of North Africa, which is we call Darija, you forget about this rule that you can start with a consonant, but that's a very dialectical thing, and maybe that's why Darija sounds very alien or very different for people who are not familiar with Darija, even native speakers. So note that while the pronunciation has changed, the letter spelling does not. So I do not remove the hamza from writing; it remains, but I do not pronounce it. The word retains the alif in both cases. However, there is a sign or a sign indication that this phenomenon of the initial glottal stop and its vowel that is only used when texts are fully voweled. And by fully voweled, I mean faithfully voweled, like we're talking about Quran or we're talking about. Yes, it's not that hard really. It's just it's more of something you have to be aware of. And it will come by nature. It'll be second nature the more you read or the more you're used to this concept. So again, هذا اسم and هذا اسم هذا اسم, and notice the little wasla sign. It's like a little sod written on top, and you'll only find this probably in the Quran. You will never find it somewhere else, because Quran requires precise pronunciation. The Arabic name of this sign is called wasla, basically a junction, kind of, meaning connecting or joining. That is the two words that are joined together in pronunciation as if one. هذا اسم. هذا اسم. No, the little sign, the little sod is the letter sod, but the sign, it resembles a small sod, but the sign is called wasla. So this hamza functions to add a means to begin with a vowel. Why is it not zooming? Okay. With a vowel when a word has an initial letter with sukun. And this we have discussed. And we are going to look at this in the following examples. The most common hamza of wasl we will encounter is the one found in the defining article, al-ta'rif. Now, what I mean by this is basically the al-ta'rif is how we make words, is one of the ways to make words definite in Arabic. So kitab, oops, let me write it with kitab, usually would receive a tanween, kitabun, kitaban, kitabin, because it's a book. But if I went and I said, no, I know this book in particular, this book, I know it, it's in my bookcase, or this is my book, I would say al-kitab, and it will never receive tanween, it will only receive dhamma or fatha or kasra, never tanween, because it's defined. I cannot say the book, basically. But here, the al-ta'rif, or the defining article al, if you look at it, the lam has a sukun. So I can never start a word with the lam that has sukun, so I have to put this alif. This alif is also a wasla. So if I am going to say al-kitab, notice al-kitab, but if I put my magical word هذا, هذا, there is no sound. I just jump from here directly to the lam. هذا الكتاب. هذا الكتاب. And in the next lesson, we're going to learn in what cases that we also do not like pronounce the lam altogether. And this is when we finish the wasla, we jump to something called sun letters. So again, we jump to the number of nouns. Usually, okay. The Hamzat al-Wasl, how to know if a word is written with Hamzat Wasl or Hamzat Qata. This is a big topic, but there are few words in Arabic that are inherent, that the Hamzat Wasl is basically part of its structure. But besides these words, beside these words, all nouns in Arabic start with a normal Hamza, either a or e, like a or u or e. All nouns, except few nouns that you will learn later on the more you progress in studying. And of course, some verbs, some conjugations of verbs take Hamzat Wasl, but of course that's way too advanced for now, because that entails knowing how to conjugate verbs, the types of verb, the trilateral roots, the quadrilateral roots, and all that. It's a huge topic, but we will get there, inshallah. So these words, if you look at all these words, the letter after the Hamza is always with a sukun. And the Hamzat Wasl is innately present to prevent you from starting with a letter that has sukun. So this one, it means son. And you would actually read it a lot in like historical texts, Muhammad, the son of, Muhammad, son of Ahmad, so Muhammad ibn Ahmad. But there's a special rule about this word that you lose the alif, but that's not the time for now. And so I would pronounce this as ibn, ithnan, ithnan. If I would put my magical word هذا. هذا ابن. هذا there's no هذا ابن. هذا, of course it has to be هذان, but for the sake of just our level, oops. هذا اثنان. هذا اثنان. هذا اثنان. There's no هذا اثنان. هذا اثنان. هذه, because هذا is for masculine, and this is هذه for a feminine, for feminine nouns, and you know that there's a تاء مربوطة, so it's a feminine noun, which means a woman. امرأة. هذه امرأة, without the magical word امرأة. With the magical word is هذه امرأة. This is a woman. هذه امرأة. This one is almost an archaic word now. No one uses it, but means like man. But it's an archaic word. If you one day learn Arabic so well, inshallah, you might face this word and in the name of a famous poet. His name is Imru'ul Qais. He's a very famous pre-Islamic poet. So Imru, how would I pronounce it without our magical word, is Imru. Yes. Every time you see Hamzat al-Wasl, a word on its own, or the word is the beginning of a sentence, you'd have to produce the I sound. I. The Imru, Imra'a, Ibn, Ithnan. But if it's amongst other words or something precedes it, this sound is gone. It basically attaches or connects to the word after it. Before it, sorry. So هذه امرأة. هذه. But alone امرأة. امرأة. هذه امرأة. And of course, the same thing occurs with the al-ta'rif, because this is one of the first most common things, or the most ubiquitous things that you are going to face, is the al-ta'rif. So you'd know how to pronounce it correctly. So if the Hamza, and this is a very peculiar case, and I feel I didn't want to add this, but then I kind of felt guilty that I should, because if you're going to start reading, you might notice something and a question mark will pop in your head. So for now, let's just explain it very quickly. If a Hamza of Wasl comes after a letter, so comes after a letter that's with sukun, a helping kasra is added to break the cluster of two letters of sukun. What does all this jargon mean? Okay, let's say I have a word. This is the Hamza Wasl, our friend, the alif that has a little sad on top, a wasla, and it is not initial. It is not word initial, so I have to kind of, when speaking, I have to kind of erase it. I don't pronounce it. But the problem is that the word before it ends with a sukun. There is no vowel quality that I can use to pronounce the lam. So I end up with a problem that is there are two letters that have sukun have met, and this is basically one of the cardinal sins in Arabic, is to have two letters with sukun coming next to each other. Remember that because the alif wasl is in the middle of a word, we treat it like it doesn't exist. That's why we call it elidable. It's omittable. I don't care, because it's only there to help me produce the lam sound, which has a sukun, if it's initial, if it's the beginning of my speech. But now it's not in the beginning of my speech. There's something in the middle. But the issue now is that that something before it is also sakin, is also like has a sukun. So what I will do, they will say that, okay, to break out of this problem, I will use my power of imagination and add, not imagination, you'd actually have to write it. And instead of having a sukun, this ta, of course, this verb with this conjugation means she received or kind of استقبلت المدير is basically she received the manager. And usually the verb conjugated for a feminine third person, like she received, ends with something we call ta'nith to indicate that the verb is referring to something that's feminine, or the doer of the verb is feminine. So the ta is inherently sakin. Grammatically, it is sakin, but it came after a word that also has a lam sakin. Did I lose you, or are you still with me? So what I would do is I would write it again. استقبلت ال and this is my wasla. So what I will do is like, okay, instead of the sukun here, I would go and put a helping vowel, which is kasra. So I would pronounce it as استقبلت 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 المدير. So why I gave this helping vowel to help me pronounce the lam of al-mudir. This is what helping vowel means in this case. It's helping me or giving me enough phonetic energy, phonetic airflow to produce the lam that is sakin. Because without it, I cannot say استقبلت المدير. This is very wrong in Arabic utterance, in Arabic speech. I cannot just break down my flow of speech. I cannot say استقبلت المدير. And if you do that, often you'd find that speech becomes very tiring because basically you're trying to chop your words into segments, which is very bothersome. So I would use, oopsie, I would use the kasra as a helping verb. Why kasra? This is a huge topic. Trust me, even natives do not dare go through that topic. So just for now, as is, just believe that a kasra is sometimes added when you notice this. And that might actually sometimes make things more clear for you when you're reading something as like, okay, why did this verb take kasra? And you know that, oh, there's al-ta'rif behind it, or there is a consonant lam or a lam that is sakin. So this is the kasra of helping, or the helping verb, helping vowel kasra, not basically a grammatical sign of what you call it for. It's not a grammatical sign of the verb. If you want to go like a quick overview, why kasra? Because uh, this is, of course, a little bit advanced for those who are curious. Why kasra in particular, if you cannot sleep the night without knowing? Usually in Arabic, verbs take only fatha or dhamma or sukun. Okay? We don't call them cases, we call them moods. And this one is called the subjunctive, this one is called the indicative, and this one is called the adjussive. Of course, this is advanced. But why kasra in particular? Because if I put fatha, people might think that this is a grammatical case. This is a grammatical mood of the verb. But then people will just start like, okay, what caused it? Why? Why is there fatha? What is the grammatical position that this verb is in to receive fatha? And if I put dhamma, it's like, okay, this is also a grammatical mood. How? Istaqbalatu? No. But kasra, because a verb can never take kasra, we would know that, oh, okay, this is a correction or this is a helping vowel. It is not a grammatical mood. This is not a syntactical effect that has happened upon the verb. So this is kasra because it's a verb and verbs never take kasr. Never. Like grammatically. It'll always be kasra in this case, yes. When it comes to verbs, it's always kasra. Because verbs never take kasra. So if I see a verb with a kasra, I mean, oh, okay, then it's basically to break the consonant cluster. It is not a grammatical effect. But this is, of course, this is a very advanced topic, but for those who are very curious, and I didn't want to confuse the very, very beginners. So, is anything unclear about Hamzat al-Wasl? Okay, if you can't think of any questions right now, feel free to, if a question pops up, you can always ask it in the beginner Arabic or in the forums, and we'll go over it again. But now, if we jump from the Hamzat al-Wasl and we go to the intricacies of the sun letters, the sun letters kind of have a very intimate relationship with the lam of al-Ta'rif. So we again look at the al-Ta'rif and we kind of break it down into an alif with wasla and a lam that has sukun. So if it comes, as we've seen before, if it comes with before something that has sukun, this will receive a helping verb kasra to kind of allow me to jump and pronounce the lam. But the elidable hamza with lam with a sukun. Okay. Our main scope here will be the lam, as we have discussed the wasla in the previous slide. Now, certain sounds or letters in Arabic interact with this lam in a unique way, where these letters prove difficult to pronounce after the letter lam. As in, ancient Arabs, when they were kind of, trying out speaking for the first time, they realized there are some letters that are very hard to produce after a lam that has sukun. And they were like, oh, this is heavy on the tongue. So what they decided to do, they're like, okay, due to this difficulty, the lam will assimilate into these letters, as these letters will kind of absorb the lam into them. And we will see how when we read the examples. And these letters that absorb the lam of the al-Ta'rif, and this is for now, this is only like specific to al-Ta'rif. This occurrence can happen somewhere else, but it's way too advanced for now. As a result, after the letter kind of absorbs the lam, because it basically absorbed a letter with sukun, the letter would become doubled, as in there will be a shadda on the letter itself, because it absorbed like a letter with sukun. Remember when we talked about shadda earlier in our slides? We remember that shadda, what makes a consonant doubled, is basically, let's say the letter dal plus a dal. So there's a dal with sukun and dal with a vowel. And instead of writing it like this, I would just like, no man, I just like merge them together and write them like with fatha. D, d. And this is a special case because now I have one of these letters that has a vowel, and before it comes a lam with sukun. So why not just like this letter eats the lam and he gets a shadda? It makes pronunciation a lot easier. Basically, it's due to the phonemic function or like a phonemic character of the letter itself. And you would see now how difficult it would. I wouldn't say difficult as impossible. I would say difficult that it doesn't roll on the tongue easily. Like I have to put effort into pronouncing it, and that's why they have come up with the what we call the sun letters. So let's look at these letters. The letters what we call the sun letters or حروف الشمسية. They are the ta, the th, the d, the re. Of course, there are 14. So the alphabet or the Arabic letters are divided into sun and moon. So 14, 14. So the re, the z, the sin, the sheen, sad, dad, ta, dha, lam, and nun. Now let's look at the examples here. But next to the examples, I'm going to transliterate the words into English. So of course, here there's a wasla. And I would pronounce it because there's nothing before the word. So I would have to pronounce the sound. But if I put my magical word, I would just jump. I would say ha the hit and just continue. But before that, we have to know how this gemination works. Now let's look at this. The t has a shadda, right? So how would I pronounce this? Now let's imagine I would pronounce this without a shadda. I'd pronounce it like this. Al-tijara. التجارة التجارة الثقافة الدين الذهب الراعي الزهور السر الشمس الصوف الضجة الطبيب الظل الباس النور. To me, as a native, that sounds very foreign and alien. At some point, it becomes funny in my head, like what I'm saying, you know? But because of this feature, because of this character of the sun letters, I would just kind of double the sound of the th, and not pronounce the lam at all. So how would I pronounce it? I would pronounce it a, التجارة, التجارة. There is no al. التجارة. And if I were to transliterate it as is, I would say this is the transliteration, like symbol. So I would say at, and then I would put a space at تجارة. Notice like at T, there's no L. There's double ta, like double, because the letter ta literally is doubled. And the shadda with the kasra, so it's at T, التجارة. Here, how would I pronounce this? الثقافة, الثقافة, الثقافة. So if I would to transliterate it, so it's like الثقافة, right? الثقافة. Here, the lam is not pronounced because there's a shadda. So الدين, الدين, الدين. Again, الذهب, الذهب. Notice how how the flow of my speech is compared to الذهب, الذهب. But here, الذهب, more flowy, more, more like easy on the tongue, easy on like less movement of the tongue. الذهب. الراعي, الراعي. Transliterated. Of course, I forgot to add the hamza. Like this is the IPA symbol of hamza, or the glottal stop. So I would put it here. Ar, ra, and this is the IPA symbol, or the phonemic alphabet symbol for ain. So it's like this. Ar-ra'i. If you want to use the Arabizi, it's gonna be like 2 and 3. الزهور, الزهور, الزهور. Let's transliterate it. So the hamza, az, zuhur, right? The flowers. السر, الس, الس, السر, si, الس. No, this one is السر, but I goofed up, so it's السر, السر, the secret. Let's transliterate it. السر. الشمس. Notice like the letter sh. That's why it was called الحروف الشمسية, because of the word shams. الشمس. الشمس. I do not say الشمس. 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 So let's transliterate it. So ash. So oh. الشمس. الشمس. الصوف. الصوف. The wool of a sheep. الضجة. 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 The noise. الطبيب. الطبيب. The doctor. الظل. الظل. I mean, both words exist, but الظل is more common. So it's basically the shadow. اللباس or اللباس, both work, but it means like attire or garment. النور. النور. I did not put anything on the shadda wow, because on the y, because there's a wow here and it's a long vowel dhamma, so it's النور. 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 So is the concept of the sun letters clear? As in, the lam is completely gone, we do not pronounce it. Because the moon letters are the exact opposite. The moon letters, when these certain letters, the lam of the definite article is not emitted and the letter does not become doubled. So the both features of the sun letters, as in you emit the lam and double the first the letter after it, do not exist. You produce the lam, you pronounce it, and the letter after it is not doubled. And these letters are basically the alif, the ba, the jim, the ha, the kha, the ain, the ghain, fa, qaf, kaf, mim, ha, waw, and ye. And we call them the moon letters. Basically, if you learn the sun letters, anything beside them is a moon letter because it's divided in half. So if you know these, you will automatically know the others. But let's look at the examples. Let's see how we pronounce them. Al-Islam, Al-Islam, Al-Islam. If I were to transliterate it, I would basically say like a al is. Oh, sorry. Al Islam. Al-Islamu. The L is there. It's like it does not go away. The lam is still there, and the letter is not geminated as the hamza is not doubled. Al-Islamu, Al-Islamu. Here is Al-Badu, 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 the Bedouins. Al-Badu. If I were to transliterate, it's hamza because of hamza al-wasl over the wasla. Al and ba du. Al-Badu. Al-Jaybu, the pocket. Al-Jaybu. Al-Hadru. Or there's a dhamma, but Al-Khardalu, the mustard. Al-Arabu. Al-Gharbu. Al-Filfilu. Al-Qamaru. Al-Kanzu, the treasure. Al-Markazu, the center. Of course, my font is kind of making it very difficult to read, but I'm gonna write it out in a more simple way. Oops. So this is wasla, this is lam sakin, and this meme has al-markazu. Al-markazu. This one is al-handasatu. Al-handasatu. Al-wizaratu. Al-wizaratu. And then al-yadu. So you notice the difference between the sun and the moon letters. And to me, this is a very important thing to know because it will kind of make reading things a lot easier. So to remember the sun letters, you just need to memorize these 14 letters. Or if you can, memorize the moon, and by extension, you'll, by default, know the sun, or you can learn the sun, and by extension, you'll know the moon. But all this moon and sun letter kind of are specific to the treatment or how they treat the lam of al-Ta'rif. So again, I want to go back to the sun letter to do something. Is okay, we've kind of pronounced all these words when they are word initial. It's like ad-din, ad-din. But what if we add our magical word, hada? What would happen? Okay, now listen closely. Without our magical word, how did we pronounce it? Ad-din, right? Ad-din. But the same rule apply with the wasla, that if it became like after a suffix or something, the hamza is gone. So how would I pronounce this in this case with our magical word? I would say هذا الدين. هذا الدين. The whole al-ta'rif and its wasla, the hamza of wasla or wasl, are completely gone. I would just read هذا and then start with the deen. هذا الدين. هذا الذهب. هذا الذهب. هذا الراعي. هذا الراعي. هذه الزهور. هذه الزهور. هذا السر. هذه الشمس. Of course, I'm using هذه and هذا because feminine and masculine. هذا الصوف. هذه الضجة. Notice هذه feminine, تاء مربوطة. هذا الطبيب. And if it was الطبيبة, I would say هذه الطبيبة. هذا الظل. هذا اللباس. هذا اللباس. هذا النور. So this is how the Hamzat al-Wasl and the lam are completely omitted or completely elided if something comes before it, if it's not word initial. But here, in the moon letter, let's add our magical word. So, هذا الإسلام, هذا الإسلام, هذا, or like, Badu is a collective or is a plural, a collective noun, so it requires a plural demonstrative. So I'm gonna skip it. هذا الجيب, هذا هذا الجيب, هذا الحظ, هذا الخردل, هذا العرب or هذه العرب. العرب is actually feminine in Arabic. Like the collective noun for Arabs is feminine. هذه العرب. As we say قالت العرب, the Arabs have said, we actually use the ta as to indicate they're feminine or grammatically feminine. الغرب. Actually, ironically, al-Gharb, if referring to the West as like a collective noun for the people of the West or the ideologies of the West, we use the masculine قال الغرب. Or, I mean, but when it comes to Arabs as a collective noun, it takes the feminine. So قالت العرب. Some books actually say that you can also say قال العرب, also valid, but we use both. Um, uh, الفلفل. هذا الفلفل. هذا القمر. هذا الكنز. هذا المركز. And هندسة ends with a تاء مربوطة, so it's feminine. هذه الهندسة. هذه الوزارة. هذه اليد. اليد in Arabic is feminine. Um, so far, we, at this point, we have finished this class, and we have finished the series. What comes after? Hopefully, we're going to start with an elementary level Arabic, as we start with a little bit of conversation, a little tiny bit of grammar, reading, and homework where you have to kind of actually put some effort. But for now, we are done. I would like to thank everyone who kept showing up, even to the class or watched the previous classes, asked questions, or learned something. I'm very grateful for you. Appreciate you're great students. Um, so before we conclude our class, are there any questions? What comes after? What comes after? That's a big topic. I don't know. Probably we're going to start with like elementary, very beginner level Arabic, but it has a lot of reading, a bit of grammar, like the use of demonstratives, the use of actually, Aziz, like you are going to be very familiar with them because I am adapting the course of the class from the elementary Modern Standard Arabic, the one by Oxford. But I'm kind of I don't like the 70s kind of typewriter kind of thing, so I'm kind of creating uh, the uh, the classes in this form of slides as PDFs after all, and it's more segmented, and I can add more material to it. So, but you are familiar, going to be familiar with the content or the major concept of the classes. But when is the next class? I don't think it's going to be next weekend. Maybe the weekend after, because probably next weekend I'm going to be on call. I have to do a night shift, so I cannot be at home. So probably the one after. But uh, what pen tool am I using? Well, basically I am streaming the screen of my iPad and then sharing the stream to Discord. So basically, it's an iPad or the Apple Pencil. Yeah, it's a bit gimmicky, and the recording software does not like it. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. So by this, I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you for attending all the classes. In few minutes, I'll upload the uh, final slides, and also I'll upload the whole letters, the whole alphabet slides as a reference or as segments if you want to follow along with the video recording. They're all going to be in the Modern Standard Arabic forum post in the lessons. and probably after a few hours, the video will be uploaded to YouTube, and I'll share the link so you can watch it again. Well, thank you very much. Again, as I said, if you have any questions while watching the videos, reading the slides, you can always ask in the beginner Arabic channel. Tag me, and I'll do my best to explain whatever is not clear.